I walked in on my husband flirting with my best friend. They tried to lie, then gaslight me and said I was overreacting, so I walked out with the divorce papers I had already prepared. The moment I walked into the living room, I was hit with an all too familiar feeling, the gut punch of betrayal. There they were. My husband, the man I had spent years with, sitting on the couch, laughing with my best friend, the woman I trusted more than anyone. But it wasn't just their laughter that caught me off guard. It was the way they looked at each other, the way my husband's hand casually brushed against hers, and the way my best friend smiled in a way that felt a little too comfortable. I froze in the doorway. I didn't even need to hear their words to understand what was happening. I had seen this dynamic before countless times, but I had never imagined it would involve them. I was suddenly hit with a wave of nausea, the blood rushing to my ears as a hot, angry flush crept up my neck. "Hey, babe, you're home early," my husband said, attempting to sound casual as if nothing was wrong. My best friend immediately jumped up, a little too quickly, and plastered a forced smile on her face. "Oh, we were just talking." "Talking?" I repeated, my voice tight. My mind raced, trying to process what I was seeing, what I had just walked in on. But I already knew. I had seen the signs. The late-night phone calls, the texts with no names, the way they seemed to accidentally bump into each other more than they should. I took a step forward, my eyes narrowing. "Flirting, you mean?" Both of them went rigid. My husband's smile faltered, but my best friend, her face going pale, tried to mask it with a nervous laugh. "Babe, no, it's not like that," my husband began, voice high-pitched. "We were just talking about some stuff, that's all." I didn't buy it. Not for a second. I looked at my best friend. "You? Really?" Her gaze darted away. "It's not what you think," she said, but there was no conviction in her voice. I let out a bitter laugh, crossing my arms. "No, I'm pretty sure it is exactly what I think. What do you take me for? You think I'm stupid?" My husband shifted uncomfortably. "You're overreacting, really. Calm down." Overreacting. The words hit like a slap in the face. I had given them both trust, loyalty, everything I had, and this is what I got in return. My best friend, the one person who should have had my back, was now standing there, pretending like everything was normal. She had crossed a line, and there was no going back. I turned on my heel, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I'm not overreacting. I'm done." I could hear them behind me, the panic in their voices as they tried to backpedal. "Wait, please, it's not like that," my husband called out. "I swear, I didn't mean for this to happen," my best friend added quickly, but I didn't turn around. I didn't want to hear it. I had already made up my mind. I walked to the kitchen, where the divorce papers sat neatly on the counter, exactly where I had left them the night before. They had been signed, sealed, and ready for the moment I'd finally had enough. I grabbed them without hesitation, walked back to the living room, and set them on the coffee table in front of them. Both of them went quiet. "You think I didn't know? You think I couldn't tell?" I asked, my voice steady but cold. "I knew, and I was just waiting for the right moment to give you both exactly what you deserve." I looked at my husband. "You've made your choice. Now live with it." I didn't wait for an apology. I didn't wait for them to beg. I just turned, walked out the door, and didn't look back. I was done. The next few days felt like a whirlwind. Everything was happening so fast, yet it also felt like I was standing still, waiting for the world to catch up with me. I had taken the first steps to cut ties with my husband and best friend, but the aftermath still lingered like a heavy fog. The divorce papers were signed, ready to be filed. I had changed the locks on the house, and all communication from my husband had stopped. At least for now. The silence was suffocating. It wasn't comforting like I thought it would be. There were moments, small pockets of time, where I would sit in the stillness and wonder if I had done the right thing. But then I would remind myself of the betrayal, of the lies, of the fact that they never truly saw me. One night, about a week after the blow-up, I found myself sitting alone in my living room, the TV on but my mind elsewhere. I was scrolling through my phone, absent-mindedly checking messages from friends who had heard about what happened. Most were supportive, some expressed shock, but there was one text I hadn't expected. It was from my best friend. "Can we talk?" My heart sank the second I saw it. I hadn't thought about her in days. After everything, after the way she stood there and lied to my face, I had thought I was done. But here she was, reaching out. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to send a harsh response telling her to stay out of my life. But another part of me was curious. What could she possibly want now? What was left to say? I stared at the message for a long time before I finally typed back. "What's there left to talk about?" The response came almost immediately. "I'm sorry. I messed up. I should have never done it. I never meant to hurt you. Please, can we meet?" I almost laughed at how fake her apology sounded. It was too rehearsed, too self-serving. She wasn't apologizing because she felt sorry for what she had done to me. She was apologizing because she had gotten caught, and now she was feeling the weight of the consequences. Paused, weighing my options. Should I meet her? Would it help me get the closure I needed? Or would it just open up old wounds? I sat there for a while, staring at the message. Finally, I made a decision. "Fine, but don't expect anything to change." I'm not here to fix anything. I set the phone down and took a deep breath. It was time to face this head on. It was time to finally let go of the past, even if that meant having an uncomfortable conversation with the person who had once been my closest friend. The following afternoon, I met her at a cafe. When she saw me, she looked different. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced with a nervous energy that I almost felt bad for. Almost. She stood up as I approached and sat down across from me, her eyes avoiding mine. "I'm so sorry," she said again, her voice trembling. "I don't even know where to start." I didn't say anything. I wasn't here to hold her hand. I wasn't here to reassure her that everything would be okay. I was here for me, for my own peace of mind. "Did you ever really care about me?" I asked bluntly. Question took her off guard. She stammered for a moment, but eventually she spoke. "Of course I did. I always did. I don't know what happened. It was a mistake. A mistake." I repeated, my voice flat. "No, this wasn't a mistake. You chose to cross that line. You didn't just slip up." She flinched, her face going red. I know, and I'm sorry for that. I ruined everything." "Yeah, you did," I replied, leaning back in my chair. "But I'm not here for your apology. I'm here because I need to hear you say it. I need you to admit that you're not the person I thought you were. You're not my best friend. You're just someone who used me." The words hung in the air, thick with the weight of truth. She was quiet for a long time, looking at her hands, then at me, and then back down again. Finally, she nodded. "I'm sorry. You're right. I used you, and I hate myself for it." I didn't feel relief after hearing that. I didn't feel like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. If anything, I felt numb. "I don't know what else to say," she whispered, looking up at me. Please don't hate me forever." "I don't hate you," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I just don't have room in my life for people who don't respect me. You and him, neither of you respected me." She nodded, tears starting to well up in her eyes. But I didn't feel sorry for her anymore. She had done enough to make me lose all the empathy I once had for her. "I'm done," I said, standing up. "I hope you figure things out. But I'm done." I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need closure from her. The only closure I needed was from myself. I walked out of the cafe, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Past was behind me, and no matter how hard they tried to drag me back into it, I wasn't going anywhere. I was free, and that was enough. The days that followed were a blur of emotions. I had broken free from the past, or so I told myself. But the reality of living in that new space, untethered from the life I'd known, was different. There was an unfamiliar sense of freedom, yes, but there was also a quiet emptiness that lingered. I had gone from being someone's wife, someone's friend, to just being me. And as much as I tried to push it all away, the guilt would sneak in. Not for what I'd done, leaving him, cutting her out of my life, but for the life we had built together, the memories that I couldn't entirely erase no matter how hard I tried. I spent the next few weeks focusing on myself, picking up the pieces. My work became a distraction, and my friends, real friends, kept me grounded. I even started going to the gym again, something I hadn't done in years. The endorphins were a much-needed escape, and it was easy to get lost in the rhythm of it all. But there was one thing I hadn't anticipated. The moments when the silence would scream at me, louder than anything I could distract myself with. At night, in the quiet of my room, I would sometimes hear his voice or imagine how things might have been if I had done things differently. If I had stayed longer, tried harder. But I couldn't. Not after everything. Then, one evening, just as I was finally starting to feel somewhat at peace, my phone buzzed. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but the area code was one I recognized. It was him. I stared at the screen for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. I had moved on. I was doing fine without him, so why was my heart still reacting like this? I thought about ignoring the call, let it go to voicemail, but then I thought maybe I need this closure. I swiped to answer, holding my breath. "Hello? Hey," his voice came through, rough and hesitant. It's me." For a split second, I couldn't breathe. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. The last time we spoke was when I signed the divorce papers and handed them to him like they were a cold, final goodbye. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. He paused, and I could hear the tension in his voice. "I need to apologize. I need you to know that I'm not proud of what I did. I didn't love her. I don't even know what I was thinking, but it's all falling apart now." His words were like knives. It was almost pathetic, hearing him sound so broken now after everything that had happened. I don't know why I thought I could just keep living like everything was fine, but it's not. And I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I was wrong. I don't even know what I want from you. I needed to say it. I couldn't speak at first. I wasn't sure what to say. Was this a genuine apology? Or was he just reaching out because things weren't going the way he had expected? Maybe he was lonely. Maybe he missed the life we had built. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had moved on. "I'm glad you're realizing the mess you've made," I finally said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "But don't think this changes anything." "I know," he replied quickly. quietly, as if he was afraid I might hang up. "I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to say it." "Okay," I said, feeling the weight of the conversation settle over me. "You've said it. Now I'm done." The line went silent for a long moment. I could hear him breathing, but he didn't speak. I waited, but nothing came. I didn't need anything more from him. This wasn't about him anymore. "I'll hang up now," I said, more for my own peace of mind than anything else. "Yeah," he finally muttered. "Take care of yourself." I didn't say goodbye. I just ended the call. The moment the call ended, I felt a strange sort of calmness wash over me. It was the final punctuation mark on a chapter that had been too long and too painful. It had taken everything in me to walk away from that life. But now, finally, I could close the door for good. I was free to choose my path, free to build a future that was mine and mine alone. No more lies. No more betrayal. Just me. And that felt like the most powerful thing in the world. As I sat there, the phone still in my hand, I realized how much power I had taken back. It wasn't just about ending a relationship. It was about reclaiming the pieces of myself that I had lost. The part of me that had let love blind me. The part of me that had put someone else's needs and desires ahead of my own. I stood up from the couch and walked toward the window, staring out at the city below. It was a clear night, and the world felt unusually calm. I hadn't felt this kind of peace in a long time. It was as if, in that one moment, I had taken a breath for the first time in ages, inhaling the freedom that came with cutting out the toxic relationships that had once held me captive. But I knew I wasn't done. I wasn't going to let this one phone call be the end of my healing process. It was time to truly move on, to put everything in the past behind me. I wasn't going to let the echoes of his voice and the memories of his betrayal haunt me anymore. I decided to take a walk. It had been a while since I had allowed myself the luxury of just being, of stepping outside my own head. It was a quiet evening, and the cool air felt good against my skin. As I walked through the neighborhood, I let my thoughts wander. I didn't have to worry about anyone else now. There were no more expectations from others. No more pretending. I was free. That night, I went to bed early. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. The dreams that had once been filled with anxiety and uncertainty were replaced with peace. I woke up the next morning feeling lighter than I had in a long time. The following days were a blur of small victories. I didn't have to fight for my place anymore. I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I spent more time with my real friends, those who had been by my side through thick and thin. I rekindled old hobbies, ones I had abandoned when I was caught up in the whirlwind of my marriage. Felt good to remember who I was before I became someone else's definition of happiness. But there was still that nagging feeling deep down inside, that feeling that even though I had moved on, there was something unresolved. One afternoon, about a week after my conversation with him, I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping on a cup of coffee when the doorbell rang. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't expecting anyone. I stood up, wiped my hands on my jeans, and went to answer the door. When I opened it, I didn't know what to expect. But there he was, standing on my doorstep. My heart dropped. My body froze for a moment. He looked different. There was a tiredness to him now, a vulnerability I hadn't seen in him before. His once confident demeanor was replaced with uncertainty. His eyes, the ones that had once been filled with ambition and charm, were now soft, filled with regret. "Hi," he said quietly, almost sheepishly. "Can we talk?" I didn't know how to respond. I had closed that chapter. I wasn't sure I even wanted to open it again. But there he was, standing in front of me, asking for something I couldn't give him, answers. I stood there for a moment, not sure whether to slam the door in his face or invite him in to hear him out. But then I remembered, this wasn't about him anymore. This was about me. "I don't think there's anything left to talk about," I said, my voice calm but firm. He nodded, as if he already knew what I was going to say. "I know. I had to try. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted to apologize. For everything. I was wrong, and I don't expect you to care, but I wanted you to know that I regret it. All of it." I stood there for a long time, looking at him, wondering if he was truly sorry or if this was just another one of his manipulative attempts to get something from me. But then, something in his face made me think that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't lying this time. "I appreciate the apology," I said finally, "but it doesn't change anything. I'm not going to be that person again. I'm done." He swallowed hard, then let out a breath. "I understand. I just needed to say it." And with that, he turned and walked away. For a second, I stood in the doorway, watching him leave. But as soon as he was out of sight, I closed the door behind me, feeling a sense of finality settle over me. This was it. The last piece of closure I would ever need. As I leaned against the door, I allowed myself one final thought. I had spent so long being someone else's idea of happiness, of love, of what my life should be. But now I was finally free to be just me, to love myself, to grow, to rebuild, without the weight of someone else's mistakes holding me back. And that was enough. The days that followed felt surreal, like I had stepped into a new life, one that was entirely my own. Every morning, I woke up to the sound of birds outside my window, the sunlight filtering through the curtains. It was peaceful, more peaceful than I could remember. I started to savor the quiet moments, like sipping my morning coffee on the balcony and watching the world wake up. I wasn't rushing anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone else's approval or love. I took long walks through the park, something I used to do before the chaos of my marriage took over my life. Those moments were a reminder of who I used to be, who I was before everything fell apart. I had forgotten the simple joy of spending time with myself, of just being. As the weeks passed, I began to fill my days with the things that made me feel alive. I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. The strokes on the canvas felt like a form of therapy, each color a release of all the pent-up frustration, anger, and sadness. The more I painted, the more I realized how much of myself I had lost in that relationship. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the years I had spent neglecting my own dreams and desires. I was finally reclaiming that part of myself. I also reconnected with old friends, people I had drifted away from when I was consumed by the drama of my marriage. It was like coming home to a place I had forgotten existed. I realized just how much I had isolated myself in those years, prioritizing a toxic relationship over the people who had always been there for me. Now they were my support system, my reminder that I was worthy of love and friendship. One evening, as I was sitting in my studio working on a new painting, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's me again." I paused. My heart gave a quick flutter, but I didn't rush to open it. The last time I heard from him, I had been firm in my decision to let him go. Why was he reaching out again? Part of me didn't want to know, but another part of me felt a strange curiosity. Had he truly changed? Or was he just looking for some sort of closure that would give him peace of mind? I hesitated for a moment, but then I opened the message. "I just wanted to let you know that things are falling apart over here. I've made a huge mess of everything. I know I don't deserve your sympathy, but I need you to know that I regret everything. The way I treated you, the lies I told, it was all wrong. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a long time, reading it over and over. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Part of me wanted to see him grovel, to feel the weight of his apology. But another part of me didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing that he still had a hold on my emotions, even after all this time. I thought about everything he had put me through, the gaslighting, the betrayal, the endless excuses. I had been his doormat, his safe place to fall when everything else went wrong, but I wasn't that person anymore. I had changed. I had rebuilt myself. I put the phone down and stood up. I needed space. I didn't owe him any more of my time, not after everything he had done. I decided not to respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I had learned that sometimes silence was the most powerful response. The next few days passed in a blur. I didn't think about him as much, and the thoughts that did pop into my mind were fleeting. I was busy with my art, with my friends, with the new life I was building. Then one evening I received another message. "I've lost everything. I don't know how to fix it. Can you just tell me one thing? Was it ever real for you?" I sat there, holding my phone, unsure how to respond. Was it real? Of course, it had been real in the beginning. There had been love, or at least the illusion of it. But what I had realized, what had become crystal clear over time, was that love wasn't supposed to feel like a burden. It wasn't supposed to make me doubt myself or question my worth. It wasn't supposed to hurt as much as it had. I didn't know how to answer that question. Truth was, I had loved him once. I had believed in our future together, despite the warning signs. But I had learned the hard way that sometimes love wasn't enough. Sometimes it took more than just feelings to make a relationship work. It took respect, honesty, and loyalty, things that had been missing from our marriage. I stared at the message for a few more seconds, then typed a response. It was real, but it's not anymore. I'm sorry for what happened, but I'm not the person I was when I married you. I'm moving on, and I hope you can find the peace you're looking for. I sent the message and set the phone down. I took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. It was done. I had said my piece. I wasn't going to let the past drag me down any longer. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the warmth of the blankets around me. I had no idea what the future would bring, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I wasn't afraid anymore. I had walked away from the life I had built with him, and I had found my strength. And that, I realized, was enough. The next morning, I woke up to a sense of clarity. It was like I had finally reached the final chapter of a book I'd been reading for years, and I could close it without looking back. There was no lingering doubt, no more wondering if I had made the right choice. I had, and I knew it deep in my bones. The phone sat on my nightstand, silent. The last text from him still lingered, but I didn't feel the need to check it again. I had already given him my final words, and I had nothing more to say. I was moving forward without looking back. That was the only thing that mattered now. The week went by, and I poured myself into my work. Art once again became my sanctuary. I poured my emotions into the canvas, each brushstroke a release of everything I had been holding on to. The art studio felt like home now, a place where I could breathe freely, no longer burdened by the weight of the past. One evening, after a long day of painting, I decided to take a walk in the park. The air was cool, the sky a soft purple as the sun dipped below the horizon. I strolled through the park, letting the peacefulness of the evening calm my thoughts. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago I was trapped in a life I didn't recognize, consumed by the lies and manipulation of someone who never truly loved me. As I walked, I ran into an old friend, someone I hadn't seen in years. We stopped to chat, catching up on everything that had happened. She was surprised by the changes in me, how confident I seemed, how different my energy was. We talked for hours, and it felt good to laugh and connect with someone who had always been there for me. That night, I went to bed with a sense of peace that had been absent for so long. I had finally cut the ties that were holding me back. The next day, I received another message from him, but this time I didn't even hesitate. I deleted it without opening it. There was no need to revisit the past anymore. I had let go. I had moved on. Over the next few months, I started rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and started dating again, cautiously but with an open heart. I wasn't looking for someone to complete me. I was already complete. I was looking for someone who would appreciate me for who I was, not who they wanted me to be. As time passed, I noticed that the memories of him, of that life, began to fade into the background. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't sad either. I had learned to let go of the things I couldn't change and to focus on the things I could. My past didn't define me. It was just a part of my story, a story that was still being written. A year after everything had ended, I found myself at peace. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't holding on to any grudges. I was living the life I had always deserved. And when I thought about him, it didn't sting anymore. I had healed and I had become stronger because of it. In the end, I realized something important. I didn't need anyone else to validate me. I had learned to love myself again, to trust my instincts, and to create my own happiness. And as I stood there, looking out at the world I had created, I knew that I was exactly where I was supposed to be.